the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux. The story of the faith in this region began with French Catholics looking for a new home. It was nurtured by priests, nuns, and bishops with a deep love for their people, and carries on today under the leadership of its current apostle, Bishop Shelton Joseph Fabre.
He came on and he said, Pope Francis has chosen you to be the next Bishop of Houma-Thibodaux. And again, in that moment, I knew my life was changing, and trusting that the Spirit of God is at work in our lives, I said yes.
This is the story of the bishops of America, the shepherds of the past and the shepherds of today, who through their callings and ministry carry the church into the future. It's also the story of their parish, their church, the cathedral. This is The Chair, an exploration of what it means to be an apostle in America. The city of Houma, the largest in the parish of Terrebonne, is filled with a delightful mix of working-class community life, natural beauty, and authentic Cajun culture. Roughly 20 miles to the north of Houma is the city of Thibodaux. These two cities are the dual sees for the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux.
It's a relatively small diocese, 2 civil parishes, 2 civil counties, 39 parishes, 12 schools, about 52 priests. But the only thing small about it is its size, because the people are big in faith and big in culture and big in hospitality and big in community. It's a diocese that is small enough that you can almost be a pastor again. It's been a real gift.
The first record of exploration in the area was in 1699, when the French explored Bayeux-la-Fourche. The city of Houma was founded a little over 130 years later, and the area was soon developed. The Catholic faith was brought to the region by French missionary priests and various religious orders who accompanied these first explorers.
In southern Louisiana, the culture is very heavily influenced by the Catholicism of the refugees who settled around 1756. These refugees had been kicked out of France because of their Catholic faith and then migrate to Canada, the Nova Scotia area, and were subsequently then kicked out of Canada because of the political turmoil. Because their home in Canada was called Arcadia, the group called themselves Arcadians, and because then Cajuns became the English-speaking version for those who are unfamiliar with the French sounds.
They were essentially refugees when they came to the region of South Louisiana. As a result, they formed tight-knit communities determined to preserve their language and their culture and their faith. And that commitment has shaped church life in the diocese ever since.
When we talk about Cajun culture, we're talking about a mix of tradition and religion that has evolved in southern Louisiana over centuries. There's a lot of cross-fertilization of colonies from around the world, but Catholicism is the dominant religion that's practiced by today's Cajun people. It's a healthy influence of folklore and rituals that are particular to the region, known for its French-speaking culture, distinctive cuisine, and festive Mardi Gras celebrations. Cajun culture holds a very special place in the American imagination. Very, very strong ties to family, very strong ties to community and church. A lot of folkloric beliefs are mixed in with the Catholic traditional beliefs that create a very, very distinctive Catholic culture. When we talk about the close ties to family and the honoring of one's parents, the Cajuns take it a step further and recognize the importance of honoring one's ancestors, honoring one's roots and heritage. And woven into all this is the art of storytelling like no other place in the country.
One of the early leaders of the church in this region was Father Charles Menard, a native of France who came to be known as the Apostle of Bayeux-la-Fouche. For more than 50 years, he served as pastor of St. Joseph's Church, the oldest parish in the diocese, established in 1817, and the future co-cathedral.
He worked throughout the region, establishing chapels and mission stations and ensuring that the sacraments were administered to the scattered Catholic population. The sacramental records that he maintained are a testament to his tireless ministry, as well as a rich source of the local religious and social history of the region. Father Menard also worked to establish Catholic education in the diocese, inviting the Mount Carmel Sisters to establish a school for girls and the Brothers of the Sacred Heart to establish a school for boys.
The region was under the jurisdiction of the Archdiocese of New Orleans for many years. In March of 1977, the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux was established by Pope Paul VI. The Most Reverend Warren Boudreau was named the first ordinary. The diocese was formed with 36 church parishes and 14 Catholic schools already in place. Bishop Boudreau served as bishop for 15 years.
Feasts and festivals and religious rituals are part of the pattern of life in the Bayou region in Cajun country. This is perhaps best seen in the annual Blessing of the Fleet, a tradition that goes back more than 100 years in some parishes in the diocese. The Blessing of the Fleet is a way of calling God's favor upon the ordinary lives and work of people in the diocese. And similar rituals have also been extended to the Blessing of the Cane for those who work in the sugarcane fields. These rituals are a reminder of how Catholic life extends beyond the parish into the local communities, with the church standing beside people in their everyday lives and everyday labors.
The two centers of liturgical life in the diocese are the Cathedral of St. Francis de Sales in Houma and St. Joseph's Co-Cathedral in Thibodaux. St. Francis de Sales was founded around 1847, and the present church was completed in 1948.
This is a Romanesque revival, and there are many Norman features. So really solid architecture, thick columns, and chandeliers, which give a sense both of procession and a little bit of mystery. So as we process towards the altar, the architecture unfolds, and the ceiling is characterized by wooden beams that are painted in polychromy, so many colors.
Of course, it's a French Gothic style cathedral. And as such, it has a lot of French Gothic architectural styles and symbols. The most frequently seen symbol in this cathedral is the fleur-de-lis. We have almost 400 fleur-de-lis in this cathedral. It was originally a French symbol. French royalty used it, and the Catholic Church kind of borrowed it. It represents the purity of Mary, and because of it, it is a flower, and because of its three petals, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, kind of fit that symbolism.
The ceiling of the nave is organized with polychromed wood. Each beam is really a threshold that one walks through towards the altar. In the sanctuary, liturgical furnishings, like the columns, are solid, and this gives a sense of both their significance and their enduring nature. The altar sacrifice has 3 panels featuring the symbol of the Alpha, Omega, and the Chi-Rho in the center, which signals both that this is the place of the sacrifice of the Mass, as well as the altar functioning as Christ's body itself. Our eye is drawn through the procession of the arches in the nave to the crucifix at the center of the sanctuary, and then upward using this pointed arch to the rose window.
The beautiful things about the art in this church is the crucifix, and you have John and Mary at the crucifix, and surrounding the crucifix, you will see some symbols, and they each represent the Passion of Christ. When the church was named a cathedral back in the 70s, we didn't have a nice marble chair. And subsequently, when we upgraded the church a little bit, about 15 years ago, and put marble in the sanctuary, we had the bishop's chair made, and actually was made in Italy. When I see the bishop's chair, we know it's very special because only the bishop is allowed to sit in that chair. That is a symbol of his authority, his being the shepherd for his diocese. So it's symbolic, yet it is also useful.
The cathedra or chair inside St. Francis de Sales Cathedral represents Bishop Fabre's authority as the Apostle of Houma-Thibodaux.
So I grew up in New Roads. I was the fifth of 6 children. My father, Luke, was a bricklayer, and my mother, Teresa, was an elementary school teacher. I had 5 siblings, my sisters, the oldest and only girl. And then after my sister, there were 5 boys, and I was the 5th of the 6 children and the 4th of the 5 boys. And warm memories of growing up as a child, warm memories of New Roads. And I'm very, very grateful for the people of New Roads, my home parish of St. Augustine Church in New Roads, Louisiana, that continues to pray for me and fostered my vocation. I was an altar server. And my pastor one day, as he looked at there were altar boys in those days, there were only boys, and he said, "You should be a priest." And he told that to everybody, But for me, for some reason, it clicked and it stuck, and based on his example, he was a very, very gregarious and happy man. He helped people, and so I thought, well, maybe I might want to do that. And it remained with me, all throughout. I did very well academically, and I became the student government president at St. Joseph College Seminary in St. Benedict. I was the first African-American student body president, so I served in that capacity. I enjoyed my college seminary years. I studied with the Benedictine monks, and the abbey there was integrated. They had African-American monks in the abbey, so I saw them there. Kind of the rhythm of life of the Benedictines, you pray, you work, and you rest. You pray, you work, and you rest. That kind of imprinted itself very deeply on me, that there has to be a rhythm to life. We pray, we work, and we rest. So I was there for 4 years, considered joining the monastery, thinking that lifestyle would be much, much better for me, and shared that with my spiritual director. I remember going to his office and telling him that I had decided I was going to join the abbey. And I was exuberant, and excited because I had finally made this decision that I was going to become a Benedictine. And I walked into his office, and he was a monk, and there he was. And so I, with all of my exuberance, I was just telling him, Father, I've decided I'm going to become a monk. I'm going to join the abbey. And I expected him to be really, really happy. And I never forget, he sat there with a smile on his face, and he listened to me, and he kind of let me talk myself out. And then finally, when I stopped talking, he looked at me, and he smiled, and he said, "Shelton, God is not calling you to be a Benedictine." And I was crushed. And he said, "If you join the abbey, it's because you're hiding from the world. And that is not what the Lord wants. The Lord is not calling you to be a Benedictine." I took him at his word and decided that I would not join the abbey. I did not petition. And honestly, at that point, in my mind and in my heart, that door closed, which may be an indication of exactly what it was, that he was right, that I closed that door so easily and so quickly. August of 1985, I flew to Belgium, became a student at the American College of the Immaculate Conception in Leuven, Belgium, going to the Catholic University of Leuven there in Louvain, Belgium. I have to say it was 4 of the best years of my life, just because of the academic study, the community, the formation, travel, all of those things that made Louvain the special place that it was.
Shelton Fabre finished his studies and was ordained a priest in August 1989 for the Diocese of Baton Rouge.
My first assignment was to St. Alphonsus Church in Greenville Springs, Louisiana, a very large suburban parish, suburban Baton Rouge, with a school and a wonderful, wonderful congregation of faithful people who, in a large way, kind of helped me to be the priest and the bishop that I am today. It was my pleasure and my privilege to serve them for 3 years. It was a very large parish. There must have been at that 2,600 families registered in that parish. And so there were lots and lots of weddings and lots of baptisms. And there was a school, many students. And so you really got to be a priest and to serve as an associate pastor, helping the pastor. So I'm very happy that my first assignment was really the joyful place that I recall it to be. Because as you know, the first assignment for a priest is very critically important. It sets a lot of things for the rest of his priesthood.
After years of ministry in Baton Rouge, in 2006, Fabre was appointed an auxiliary bishop of New Orleans by Pope Benedict XVI. Years later, in 2013, Pope Francis appointed Bishop Fabre as the new bishop to the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux.
I did not know I was being considered. I was the auxiliary bishop of New Orleans. You know, I tend to bloom where I'm planted, as the saying goes. So I was very happy in Baton Rouge. It was very difficult to leave Baton Rouge. I went to New Orleans, loved New Orleans, you know, established my roots there, was very happy in New Orleans. And being the only auxiliary in the Archdiocese of New Orleans, I didn't expect that I was going to leave. So I'd come to Houma, to this cathedral, one time as auxiliary bishop of New Orleans. I'm sitting at my desk on September the 9th, the feast of St. Peter Claver, and the phone rings, and I look down and it's a 202 number, which is a Washington area code, and it was the direct line to my desk. And I answered the phone, and the very nice secretary says, "Is this Bishop Fabre?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "This is Sister, don't remember her name, would you please hold for the papal nuncio?" And I said, "Well, sure, okay." And he came on and he said, you know, Pope Francis has chosen you to be the next bishop of Houma-Thibodaux, and I'm calling to talk to you about that. So again, I was really surprised. I did not expect it, and so we had a very nice conversation. And again, in that moment, I knew my life was changing, and trusting that the Spirit of God is at work in our lives, I said yes. Then on September 23rd, the announcement was made, and then I was installed October the 30th of 2013. It's been a grace, it's been a gift to be here.
In the years since becoming bishop, Shelton Fabre has worked to shepherd his people, leading them in the ways of justice and peace. His ministry also extends beyond the diocese. In his work with the USCCB in fighting against racism in the country.
Probably about 4 or 5 years ago now, at the time that I was the chair of the Subcommittee on African American Affairs, which is a committee of the full Committee on Cultural Diversity. The African American Affairs Subcommittee sensed in the country that racism was surfacing up again. You know, there were police killings, there was unrest amongst the races, all kinds of things. So we suggested to the USCCB that we needed to do another pastoral letter on racism. After Charlottesville, the bishops again sensed racial tension rising, racial unrest rising, and the USCCB established an ad hoc committee on racism. So I became the chair of the ad hoc committee on racism, and I think the pastoral letter is a wonderful document. At its very heart, it reminds us that, and the bishops say it unequivocally, that racism is a life issue. And so as we work for the respect for all life, we must also be working to rid our church and our country and our world of the sin of racism. And I think that the Catholic Church is one of the institutions in a unique position to help people to have these discussions. Pope Francis has so wonderfully said to provide and to nurture those encounters where listening can happen. And by listening, I mean listening as a priest in Beaumont once said, you say you're listening to somebody when you accept that you might be changed by what you hear.